In this video, we're going to be dividing decimals by decimals. The first step of dividing decimals is to take this number and we need to convert it into a whole number. And it's actually a simple trick. All we're doing is we're moving that decimal place over by 1. So if we move the decimal place over, what we'll end up having is the decimal right there will change this number to 2. But if we move the decimal place on this side, we have to do the same thing on the other side. So we'll take the decimal place and we'll move it in the same direction. So if we move it 1 to the right, we move this one 1 to the right. So now we'll end up having 62. And from there, we could just go ahead and do simple division. 2 goes into 6 3 times. That's going to bring us 6. Have a 0. We drop down the 2. Now 2 into 2, that's going to go 1 time. So the answer is 31. Moving on to this question, again, we need to change this into a whole number. To do that, we move that decimal place over 1, so the decimal place will be right there, which makes this value just a plain 8. So we have 8. Now again, we have to move the decimal place over to the right 1 on the other side, right? Because we moved it on this side once, which means we have to move it on this side once. So now with that decimal place over there, we change this value to 0.816. If we do the math to this, we'll put a 0 here. We have the point here. How many times does 8 go into 8? That's going to be 1 time. So now we can subtract an 8. We have 0. We bring down the 1. Okay, we can't factor out a 1 because it's smaller than 8. So we'll put a 0 here. So that's going to be a 0. We subtract that. 1 minus 0 is 1. We bring down the 6. 16 goes into 8 2 times. So our answer is 0.102. Now if we have a 2-digit decimal, it still follows the same process. We need to move this over to make it a whole number. So this time though, we're going to move that decimal place over 2 times, which means we need to move this decimal place over 2 spots. So now we have 35, which is a whole number, and we have 1575. So how many times does 35 go into 15? Well, that's going to be 0. How about 157? That's going to be 4 times. So if we do the math, we're going to have 140. And that's going to give us 17. And if we drop down the 5, that is going to go in 5 times. So the answer is 45. Now again, we have 2 decimal places, so we can need to move this over 2 spots. And if we do that on the same over here. So now we have 11, and that's going to be divided by 363. How many times does 11 go into 3? That's 0 times. What about 36? That will go 3 times. So 3 times 11 will be 33. We subtract, we'll get 3. We drop down that 3. 33 and 11, 3 times. So the answer is 33. Now what happens if your decimal is greater than 1? Well, it's still going to follow the same procedure. We need to make this into a whole number. So we'll move the decimal places over 1, which means we have to do the same thing over here. So now we have a decimal place here. The decimal place is here. Now this changes it to 34. Divided by 210.8. So how many times does 34 go into 2? 0. Well, how about 21? 0. How many times does 34 go into 210? I believe that's going to be 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 2, that's going to be 20. We subtract that. We should get 6.8, and that's going to be 2. The decimal place, again, goes right where it falls in line. So we end up having 6.2.